Welcome, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Hello everybody. Welcome. So glad that you're here. It's 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and we are going to get started. My name is Calvin Stalvig. I'm the Director of Youth Programs and Artist Residencies at Beam Center. We're based in Brooklyn. And I'm going to just go through a quick introduction to why we're all here today. In response to the precarity and loss artists and cultural workers have experienced this year, the Trust for Governors Island, in collaboration with 19 organizations, chose to cancel their public-facing programs for the 2020 season, and instead offer space to more than 100 New York-based artists. Hey Neighbor is an artist talk series organized by 4 of the organizations hosting residencies on the island: Beam Center, Foreheads, NARS Foundation, and Harvest Works. And we've invited artists to discuss ideas and feelings that have surfaced while creating artwork in the midst of monumental turbulence. Before we go any further, we'd like to make a land acknowledgement and honor that prior to being renamed Governor's Island, this land was known as Pagonk and is a part of the Lenape people's ancestral homeland, despite violent displacement and genocide at the hands of settler colonialism. Today, Governor's Island is proof that creative community and resilient landscapes can flourish from that which was once a site of the American military-industrial complex. Families, friends, and strangers from every corner of the world gather here to picnic, learn to ride bikes and roller skate, pick lavender, birdwatch, and learn about oyster habitat restoration in the East River. And in other words, Governor's Island exists in a sort of post-war future we are all hoping for. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jack Robinson, who's the co-founder of Foreheads, the organization that produces Portal Governor's Island, an art fair that welcomes more than 40,000 visitors annually. Jack will introduce the artists who are currently joining us from Beam Center's house on Governor's Island at 8B Nolan Park. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey everyone, welcome to week 3 of our artist talk series. We made it. I'm here with Rina A.C. Dweck and Valerie Hellier. Did I get your last name right, Valerie? I feel I'll be doing that a lot. Anyway.
Just say like Allier, that's good.
Hellier.
All flat.
Okay, Hellier. So Rina and Valerie are both artists in residence on the island. They are both artist pandemic moms as well. And Rina is in residence at our residency, the Foreheads residency, and Valerie is in residence with Harvest Works, one of our partners for these talks. So how these talks work is I introduce, which I just did. Then I'm going to play 2 videos one from each of them, if you can believe that. And then I will get out of the way and let the artist have some conversation time with themselves. If you have any questions as viewers, please type them into the Q&A or into the chat, and either the artist can address them directly or I'll bring it up if they miss what's going on. So yeah, thank you one and all. I appreciate it that you're here. And I'm going to start out with Rena's video, and then we'll play Valerie's directly after that.
Good morning. A few days a week, I arrive here on Governor's Island and I have access to two amazing spaces. I've set up workstations for each part of my practice. I have ample space to spread out and explore and think about all the ideas in terms of materiality that I try to approach every day. This is my second room. It's just incredible to be surrounded by nature, have access to rooms with such energy of life, a house that's been lived in, a story that's once been told, and another one that's being created.
Hey, that was amazing. I love, so I've been on the island since 2008, and all of those spaces that you're showing there are like, I don't know. We've even shown in some of those creepy, weird spaces around the island, and just to have a look at that was really wonderful.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Rena Dweck's video. Sorry, we have Valerie Ellier video. And one second. Wow, my new setup was supposed to save trouble.
My multimedia work is project-based, and it takes the form of series, sculptures, installation, and public art pieces. I use visualization softwares, press flower petals, video projection, beading. I do enjoy experimenting with diverse mediums, digital, natural, or traditional. That helps me to explore how control and its release color the dynamics between the natural, the human, and the technological realms. In my recent project, I tried to break away from the patriarchal hegemony of vision as our primary controlling sense. It has been since the advent of perspectival view in Western cultures. Control does drive my own obsessive processes, and it does influence my relationship with nature, with technology, and with other living creatures. The project that I've been working on during my residency with Harvest Works, Scream Now, Inside Out, has been in my mind for years. It has gone through variation and has been adapted to meet the restrictions linked to the present COVID pandemic. But its reason for being has remained the same. I feel it's even more potent at this very moment. The project is inspired by the French medieval crieur public. The screaming booth uses a fundamental yet repressed human expression, a scream, to generate visuals in a public setting. I am also in the process of developing a crowdsourcing app to locate appropriate places to go scream in cities where no screaming booths are available. The booth was built in the artist Tom Fern's studio. It arrived on Governor Island in July. I then put together all the elements. The studio became the control center, and I covered it with pressed rose petals, like the outside in, just like the scream kind of is the inside out, which has been like how the original concept for the project, Scream Now, has evolved. I have worked on animated scream visualization as a way to create a unique trace of the cathartic moment. I worked with Matthew Orthowski and the Max 8 software to try to individualize and create unique visualization. With the visualization, screaming is made easier and meant to have a positive impact. I am interested in going back and forth between the emotional, the virtual, and the physical aspect of screaming, while giving the screamer an opportunity to perform and experience this cathartic and transformative act.
Hey guys, wow. I'm so excited for this project. This is, it's just perfect, really. So I am gonna get out of the way here and let you guys talk, because that's really what this is about. And yeah, I'll catch up with you guys at the very end. So
Sure. Hey, Valerie. Thanks, Jack. And Calvin, nice to meet you. Thanks to everybody for making this happen. And as some of you might know, it was a last minute situation. And I think that that'll make it even better because we'll be able to learn more about each other in the presence of others. So it'll be we got to know each other a little bit this morning on a few-minute phone call, but this is like a cold talk. So
Yeah, it's live discovery, and that's really exciting. That's how it happens in life sometimes.
yeah,
So you want to start? Yeah.
sure. I think, I was looking around at your work, and I think it's actually perfect that we left off at the Screen project, which is what you're working on now, because of, this merging of technology and nature. And I loved seeing that video. It was the first time I saw it. And I love seeing the merging of what you're doing in the studio in relationship to what's happening outside of the studio and in participation with other people. So I'm also intrigued by the technology because I think that we both touch on things that have to do with the organic world. But I was saying to you how I've tried in terms of technology, and I'm very old school. So I stick to that way of being. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the marrying of these two. So.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, for me, technology, I'm fascinated by it. I don't know that that idea of control that I was talking about, I really don't have that much control over it, but it's like I use it as subject and as object, kind of both ways, to try to demystify it somehow for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the curiosity, I've been, driven to learn as much as I can, but I don't code, for instance. So then I need to work with people who can do the things, but I know enough to kind of imagine what's possible. Mm-hmm. And that is the exciting idea that marrying the natural, the human, and the technology call for me, which are often perceived as very separate realms. And when, it's all from the same origin, whether we know which one, however we, interpret what the origin is, but we are a part of nature and we created technology kind of at our image with some of the limitations, some of the, like I worked also on the glimpse of technology, for instance. So really like looking at it a little bit sometimes from the outside versus just really being immersed working with it. But you say that, but then it was really cool how for presenting your work, you're using Instagram 100%. That's
true.
So, I think we all have our own relationship with it. And I'm really interested in, for the booth, it's really this kind of guttural. I was really interested in marrying technology with something that's so human and so almost, from our origin, like screaming has a function to, survival, basically, at the beginning. And in the 70s, it was like that primal scream therapy that also was very popular. And just also the interaction with people and see how, when it's presented well, technology is, seamless. It doesn't really seem like anything. It's very natural for people to be screaming and seeing the visualization. Mm-hmm. They just like kind of right away get it. So.
Right. I'm curious about the scream also as something that you chose, because I mentioned also this morning that it was something I've thought about too. And the reason I thought about possibly coming up with a project was because I felt that in relation to what you were saying about like scream therapy and that kind of thing, in terms of the world that we live in now, we don't always have this way of expressing ourselves in that way without it being a judgment of some sort. And
Absolutely, yeah.
I was thinking like it could be like a solitary experience. I was thinking about it for an idea that I had, but why the screen per se for you in terms of a choice?
Well, the idea, as I say, like the French crieur public, which was this kind of interface between the king, decree, and the people, who's coming to villages and like screaming out, the new order of things. That was like one element for the public aspect of it. But really, the real thing was a radio show that I listened to when I first arrived here. I don't remember if it was This American Life or something like that, which was like, oh my God, America's got culture. It was really cool to discover. But anyway, on one of those shows, there was a show where people were invited to scream on the phone, and they had recorded those. And I was just like fascinated, and you could tell it was so neat, pleasurable at the same time as like, and then I did a bunch of research for when I was thinking first of the app. As you say, sometimes it's something that you want to do on your own, and the need for privacy is kind of key to really, invite people to do that. So I did a course on UX design where you research a little bit like how people feel about whatever you're about to create. So you do a lot of interviews and stuff like that. And yeah, the idea is that it's not socially accepted. I mean, either you're deranged or, there's something wrong with you, or yeah. So it's definitely repressed. And that was something that I was really interested in. And then the idea of visualizing it was a way to make it like giving it a trace, but also de-dramatizing in some respect. It becomes a force. Visually, you can see the power and it creates something.
That's so cool.
So yeah, so then it's like, ideally, I would love to have like a one screaming booth in every city, like make it really part of the urban furniture and allow for this isolation, which obviously wasn't possible here because of the COVID ideas. So
right,
those structures stayed open for safety measure. And the good thing is that because it's this island and, it's not super populated, people do have a sense of like, they don't see a lot of people around and they're able to kind of.
Right, that's true. They could really release without having, to come in with those expectations of judgment around them.
Absolutely. But that makes me think of something also from what we talked about your work, which I'm really interested in, because you talked about the gut feeling you want people to kind of, or you want people to perceive your work in a certain way, right? And this tribal aspect that I was reading into what you showed, the idea also of the using hair and the paint and kind of, I don't know, there's a ritualistic almost aspect, signs, and some of the patterns also that you're using. So I'm really interested in finding out more, like how do you yourself work with that kind of archaic part? For me, the scream is one way to look at it, but maybe on your hand, like maybe the tribal aspect of your work.
Well, I think it was an evolution of, obviously we all have our identities that tie into things. And, you and I have spoken about photo a day projects and thinking about ourselves in terms of, how we present ourselves on a daily basis. So we have our own personal reality, then we have our artistic experiences, and, the technical language that we pick up along the way. So I'm from Brooklyn. I'm Jewish. I have Middle Eastern background. I have European background. I'm like a merging of a lot of different worlds. And then I painted for a really long time. And then I did photo-based work for like 5 years. And then I started to make sculpture. And I think that when it got to the point that, you know, it takes a really long time to figure out exactly what it is that you want to say, and you make a lot of work along the way that helps you explore what that presentation is going to be about. And so
I'm never going to say that it's not going to get to the point where I'll shift my into a different medium again, but I really see myself living here because I'm kind of merging all of that. I'm thinking about my
identity, and it's a mode of self-portraiture that's not super literal. And then,
you know, I think a lot in 2D ways in terms of the way that I approach the work, but then I can access making it more easily because I can grab at things that already have a context or a texture or a color. And I think the action and the motion of putting it all together allows me to get to it quicker and have all these worlds merge and come together. And so I think what happens is me keeping in mind
that I think that materiality leads to some sort of visceral
reaction because people are
relate to a material in a certain way based on who they are. It's going to be a given.
And then alluding to body, because I think that I'm thinking about that a lot in terms of myself,
in terms of identity and femininity.
And then saying, well, okay, now how have I pushed these materials as far as they could go to bring all of that together into one place.
So
I think what comes as a result is things that I don't anticipate, like the look of something that might be
tribal. And I think that it connects into it because when you think of things that are made by hands and in a way to relay a feeling to the viewer, it's like an act, an act of, I'll just say it's an act.
Yeah, and there's this idea of assemblage, like putting the stuff together that all have already some kind of story to tell.
Exactly.
Kind of creating like a narrative with all those different elements. And yeah, I can tell. But really, there was some that almost looked like ethnological artifacts. You know, like some of the red pieces that I saw on your Instagram feed that really put in a little square so you can see the whole thing. Like that's really and it just the use of hair also. Can you talk a little bit about like that as a medium, like what symbolism, or what do you?
Yeah, totally. Hair is so meaningful to me. And it's really just been a mode of self-expression for myself my entire life. And I always pushed up against like the expectations that people had for me. You know, I came from a place where everyone had perfectly
thick, straight, long brown hair. And even though I thought it looked really nice, it's not, I didn't want to be a member. I think it was subconscious at the time as a young child. It was like the first thing I could do was just have it on as an act of defiance and an act of showing that I was an
individual in a sea of sameness.
So
and, you know, like just being a Jew and like, you know, taboo around things like getting tattoos or things that are very permanent or have you, you know, really stand out. It was a way to say like, oh, I can have my hair be this way one day and it could always grow out and I could be
normal if I need to be.
Right.
So in relation to like identity and also in Judaism, you know, if you're Orthodox,
you cover your hair and it's a really a very sensual, viewed as a very sensual thing. So
when I started to make sculpture, I was working with all things that alluded to body. And I still do. I use lashes and nails.
I saw some lashes in
yeah. That was Governor's Island 2018. That was great.
So when I really thought about it, to just use hair alone made a lot of
sense because it was all the things that I needed it to.
And it had this textural thing, and it also you know, like I have my mentor used to walk into my studio with her sandwich, like running to do studio. She'd look at my work and she'd like put her sandwich away because she wouldn't be able to like eat her sandwich while she was looking at all the hair. So I was like, okay, this is working.
Yes, the effect intended.
For all those reasons, and like anthropomorphizing things, bringing it to life. Yeah, I don't know if it's hair that I'll always use, but for now.
Yeah, it seems to be like throughout the different, for what I saw briefly, obviously, I want to look way more at your work.
Yeah, we have to look at each other's way more.
You know, I will, like, I started working with flower petals, and that's only 2 years. And I think that would be almost like the equivalent of you working with hair, although it's such potent material. Like for me, flowers obviously have so much symbolism behind them, depending on the culture, but you know, almost all over the world, flowers are kind of a vehicle, yeah, something that, you know, meaning, symbolize things. But even more so, like you talked about, like femininity, and that's how I approached it at first, was really this idea of something that's really fragile, that is, you know, acquainted to femininity. But also while working with it, I realized like how resilient it is.
Wow.
Like, you know, once the petals are pressed, they're, you know, they can crumble, but most of the time, I mean, I can hot glue them. I can do so many things to them that I didn't think I could. And they're pretty stable, their colors. And so I don't know, I really love that idea that we, you know, using things that are representative of course, identity and community. And this show I did at NARS, I saw that you did a solo show, Shashama.
Yeah.
That was in December, right?
Yeah, just of last year.
It's funny because I also love the way you you wrote something on Instagram saying like you're alone, you're finishing putting everything on, and you know, but you're so glad you chose this life and all that. At the same time, I mean, almost beginning of January, I was putting a solo show at NARS.
Oh, look at us together.
And I was just exactly in the same boat, like kind of first dreading, like, oh my God, I'm so alone to do all this work and all that. But by the end, you're just like, so, I don't know, it's so good. And so anyways, that show was using almost solely flower petals, and it was deflowering, like this moment, where you lose your virginity. And a lot of people in a previous show giving me the story of their first time in the very first show. And then I recorded all those, and then the pieces of the show, all the pieces were basically inspired by those stories. And the idea being again about this moment where you lose control, you know, where you give to something else. So it's in the same realm for me as screaming, like, and using jewelry and petals, kind of like both artifacts or symbols.
Yeah, we both dress up our organic choices.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I think making that choice, especially as moms, right? We're both moms. Yeah. It is yeah, it's fascinating, but also, you know, a lot of work. Someone said,
tell me about that. Artist.
Well, actually, I think most of my life I was avoiding both things almost. I mean, of course, I wanted to be an artist, but I always had a hand or a foot in design, in whatever that I thought I needed to survive, make money, etc. But I think deeply that was just a bit of a fear of failing as an artist, you know, not doing it like completely fully. So I would show that things, but then there was a period of time where I would stop. And then when I had my daughter 8 years ago, which is, you know, pretty late in life for me, but at the same time, everything changed. Like all of a sudden I wanted to take risks and go 100%, which is counterintuitive.
Right, it's usually the opposite, right?
Everything, but no, I don't know. I just wanted not consciously set an example, but at least for her to see in motion
Sure.
someone doing what they love and not
Mhm.
and not, you know, not wait so long. So yeah, it's been extremely transformative for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, it really can sometimes be the opposite for people. I think that they can become stifled and fearful, and it pushes them even deeper into not taking risks. But I'm glad it worked the other way for you.
I mean, life is amazing that way. What about you?
Yeah, I think that as my
Children grew and I had more time and opportunity to get work done, it made me realize how important it was for them to see me doing something that I was really passionate and driven about. I have 2 daughters. I'm proud to say I have a very feminist son.
Well done.
This is important. But
I was a little confused about it in the beginning,
and I think I just needed to start doing whatever I needed to do. And also just actually do it, because the doing is so much more important than anything, because those are the things that become absorbed.
and you can tell me if this is true for you also, but as a parent, I feel like sometimes, you know, there's a timer on, and you have to stop what you're doing. You don't have a choice.
When it comes to your practice,
I find for me it's beneficial a lot because it has me walk away and really think about what I've done, and I don't really have a choice about it. Or it has me not have access to making something that day, and then so I'm really thinking about it, and then I approach
work in a very
much more spontaneous or excited
way.
So I don't know if that's true for you too.
Yeah, there's no time to really tire the work because you're just like, yeah, no, and also I think it helps focus when you have the time that, you know, you're like,
right.
Then you just like, it just feels like, wow, okay, let's go for it, and let's do, let's make as much as possible while that time is allotted. But I must say also, at times, my daughter's been just like simple inspiration. I mean, just her own creative process is just like totally, you know, there's no limit, there's no,
it's true,
very energizing, but it's conflictual sometimes when I can tell she feels like I'm always working, you know. It's like, because I bring it home, I bring it with me, and you know, it's just the two of us, so there's no structure to follow, like it's very much make our own as we go. But of course, you know, with school and all those things, there is a basic structure. But so I mean, it's it works, and I would encourage. I mean, I think artists should all have children if they can, because we need more. We need more.
We need more art kids.
They don't all turn out to be artists themselves, but
no, but they understand the importance of art in the world. That's for sure.
Yeah, and creative thinking, you know, solving problems creatively versus just, you know, following the rules or whatever. But I think it is it's a plus. I can't imagine not having that. But yet I totally understand also. I have a lot of friends who decided that they want to be 100%, and that is each person's, you know.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have those
for too. That's
of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you know, we have our frustrations where it's like sometimes we can't participate, and to think that, you know, it's a possibility to not have things get in the way is great. But it actually prompted me. I saw
a documentary, I want to say maybe like more than 15 years ago. I forget, maybe it was like Schnabel's daughter. I forget who put it together, but it was like famous artist's daughter who made the documentary, and she interviewed female artists, and you can see she was coming from a place where she was the artist with the artist's child. So her
question make it like the same for everybody. And it was a diverse group of women, and each of them were of different age, different practice, different material.
Different point in their lives. And her one question that
She asked everyone is, should a female artist have children?
and
I remember
it was one of the most
devastating moments because like across the board, everyone said no.
And I already had kids at that point. And
one artist who was older and in her 80s or 90s said that she raised her children in her studio, running around, using her paints. But it was the only person out of like 10.
Wow.
I left devastated
because I was like, okay, they're giving me this answer of like, it's impossible.
And
I think subconsciously it pushed me even harder to prove that it doesn't have to be true. So, I don't know.
I mean, that's amazing that there was only one. I mean,
yeah.
But at the same time, it makes sense. The art world has been run by men, you know, the childbearing has always been, and everything around it has been, the woman has to do it. And, you know, I mean, the oldest patriarchal society that I was referring to in that one piece, like, is a reality. So it takes a lot of courage to just change the rules and just say like, well, you know, I can do it. But yeah, I just, I saw the same way slightly, you know, deciding all of a sudden that, no, I need to go through that experience of having a child. But I was afraid, I was afraid it would be in a way, it would just transform me into somebody else, or, you know. So I can understand, but I think it's important to give the example that it is possible and that it is, you know, it would be great also if there was a little more support, like as far as residencies and things like that. And there are some, and I think there are more and more.
Yeah.
Take it to account that, you know, you can have a family and you don't have to be like just one entity, which for me refers a little bit to this old 19th century romantic idea of what an artist is.
Right.
I just, yeah, I never bought into that. Maybe when I was 12, but that's it. So yeah, I'm all for like showing that, yeah, there's so many different ways to do it. And the more support, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's changing. I think there's a culture around that, but we definitely need more of that. I think that it could have been, you know, I think about even just my first residency, I think was like 2013. And it was Vermont Studio Center. And the reason I could go was because they offered 2 weeks as opposed to a month. And I couldn't leave my family for a month at a time. And it was the only opportunity at that time. I didn't really even see anything in terms of like allowing families to stay anywhere else. And now when I think just from 2013 to today, the differences of choice that there are in terms of residencies, it's astounding, but we certainly need more support.
Yeah, I don't think there's not many. I have to also not, I mean, I do not apply to so many because.
Yeah, of course, it's understandable.
What am I going to do with my daughter?
Right.
And it's, yeah, no, that's a shame. But at the same time, yeah, hopefully that is changing.
So we could talk about Governor's Island then, and how amazing it is in so many ways in terms of like the things that we're making and access to the city and to, you know, the playgrounds and having your daughter here with you.
Yeah, it's like you can leave your guard down when you arrive on the island. It's like such a different feeling than being in the city. You just kind of, there's a sense of disconnection with nature, obviously, but also, yeah, there's a lot of worries or things that are present, inherent to the city life that poof are gone. And it's like, you know, 10 minutes on a boat ride. My first residency here was in 2010 with LMCC, the swing space. And I was amazed. I was just like, I was looking for the biggest tree where I could maybe like put a plank and like stay overnight. And then I was told like, no, you cannot. Nobody stays on.
$2,000 later.
But yeah, no, I was amazed. And it was very inspiring. I mean, especially right now with everything that is going on, needless to say, it's like a little piece of paradise that, you know, is beyond normality. It's just like much better. And I'm going to be very sad when I'm going to leave the end of the month. But I was able to focus. My kid was taken care in a camp right across from my studio. I mean, I feel blessed and very lucky.
Yeah.
And it is like the best of rituals to just, do this little walk to the studio and just like get to work. I mean, that's ideal. What about you?
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly, because it's like the second you step on that boat, you're literally being transported away from all the craziness that's going on in the world. And, even to think about the capacity being reduced here and how lucky we are to be in this space where there's not that many people, but enough to feel like, there's somebody. It's alive. But it's just such a gift to be here, and the blessing is such the right word, and miraculous.
And I was thinking just in terms of like,
The juggle of all the things that we have to do, and especially now.
well, actually, I should say the opposite, not especially. And that is the silver lining. It's like kind of like
The things that don't really need to be happening have fallen away, and then we're left with the ability to have something like this and the time and the space to be able to tap into our creative selves and kind of like let go of even less stuff. But yeah, I mean,
all this noise that you're able to, and for my kid, really literally a freedom that I could not allow her in the city. She just goes around, connects with nature like she's never before. And just for that, that's just like, ka-ching.
totally. It's a gem of a place. And I love the way it's growing. I love that there's art on the island. I love that there's awareness of nature and saving it and preserving it, and the history of the Lenape. And it's just, we're working on keeping this way for a long time, I know. But
yes, thank God it didn't become a casino or,
we have to fight against those things, please.
Even Google wanted it as a campus, but really happy that they managed to make it a national park. I don't know if it's officially a national park, but it is a park for sure.
Yeah.
Public park. No, and allowing so many artists. There's almost 200. They said 128 or something.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. To think of the energy that's on this island of what has been here and what is here now is astounding to me.
No, I know my neighbors, this is a neighbor, and it's nice.
Neighborhood.
The neighbors that are a little further away, but I know people here at Beam. I know people in the West Harlem next to us, and it's great. And I'm so grateful to HarvestWorks to continue also like doing the work and having us on the island and going around the restrictions that were in place that made it at first very very uncertain.
Totally.
So many uncertainties.
I know. One day at a time and one foot in front of the other, and that's the best we could do now, and keep the practice going.
Art.
Make art, people.
Yeah, I'm on.
Is that good? Is that cue? Is that a good place? I'm looking at the chat if there were any questions. Characters or media you love and have learned about through your children. Music, always music for me. I feel like I'm becoming in pop culture. I always love pop culture. They're keeping me up to date and on my toes.
That's really good. Media you love and have learned. Yeah, music definitely with my daughter. Like I took singing lessons when I was pregnant. It made me like, I have a friend who does opera, sings opera. So
I sing opera.
You do?
I do. I think I'm a coloratura soprano.
Wow, that's
I don't do it anymore, but I can get up there.
Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind for well, my secret, I want to make a musical at some point.
Do you? Oh my gosh.
And
okay.
you know, my daughter will be, of course, a star.
Of course. Of course. I fully support this. This sounds amazing.
To see, but I think at one point it's all going to come together. And yeah, so
I believe in you. If you got the screaming going, you're going to get the musical happening.
yeah, no, I mean, if I'm able to do the screaming booth, then yeah, anything's possible. And I learned how to play guitar during the
That's great.
because I wanted to show her like how practice, you know, kind of, and she plays bass. It's cool.
Your band going.
Yeah, so music is so central in our communication. Whenever there's something that doesn't work, it's almost like I start like in a musical, you know, I start singing about what's going on, and then she just like joins in and we forget about whatever was going on.
I love that. That's so cool.
That's so not French. I've been here for too long, so yeah.
That's good. That's good. We need you.
Anything else? We're good? Yeah, I think.
Coloratura. That's my mother.
It's as French as the day old Dunkin' Donuts coffee that you were having. The audience didn't see that, but I have to point it out. I'm sorry. C'est bon.
Go, Mom.
So I mean, artists are kind of born gamblers. You know, you have to have some certain amount of disregard for a good life to be an artist. I mean, I know I do. My wife does. Every artist that I've met has that bit of disregard. And as a parent, I would imagine that is compounded a little bit. I don't know, in the last like minute, do you want to just touch on that? I mean, I guess I was just maybe pointing it out. So I don't know if you want to touch on it anymore.
But I think, you know, like taking the risk, I think is one way to look at it. But, you know, what you call like quality of your life for me is doing what I love. I mean, obviously financially there's always issues and you have to kind of work with the system and find ways and be creative. But, you know, I don't dream to be rich or anything like that.
No.
That's not my motivation for anything that I do. So
I think that's the key. I think the key is to do it because you want to be doing it, not because of what the expectations are around any accolades, you know?
Yeah, like Louise Bourgeois was saying, like, you know, when she had a bad critic or when she felt totally ignored, especially in the world she was living in, like being the only woman, she said, well, I just went back to work whenever. And I love that because I think, yeah, that's the best thing you can do. Just go back and work.
Yeah,
All right.
Agreed.
Guys,
Thank you, Jack.
You have had such a wonderful, poignant, flowing, beautiful conversation. I really, really love it. But we have to cut it off here because we're kind of a tight schedule. So, I mean, thank you for your time. Thank you for your thoughts. And
thank you. Thank you, Valerie. Nice to meet you.
I think all really appreciated.
Much. And thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
So, guys, I'm going to put everyone on a bit of a hold screen for a little bit while we get set up for our next discussion. This one's a little bit of a schedule change as well. Tim Fight, instead of talking with Zealy Brown, he will be talking to Shiri Mordecai. And I'm really looking forward to it. They're two Foreheads artists, and I'm big fans of them both. So just hold on a little bit, and we will see you soon.
Did you get an email from Jack? Hello, hello. Is anyone there?
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Jack. How's it going?
Don't say that on an airplane.
Sounds good. I can hear. That's good.
Hey, everyone. We're still waiting on one artist to just get set up. She's right there, but she's just having some tech problems. But Tim is very entertaining just all by himself. I mean, we were thinking because Zealy Brown had to drop out last minute that Tim would just do his own artist talk.
I do my own what?
You would just do your own artist talk with yourself. You would just interview yourself, pretty much.
Oh yeah, that was a possibility. But then Sherry stepped in and
everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be real nice.
So just for anyone else that is joining us newly, so what we're doing here is, oh, Sherry's here. Look at that. What we're doing is I'm going to be just doing a quick introduction talk with the artists. We're going to play 2 short videos from each artist, and then we're going to let everyone just kind of talk on their own. And then any participants, any attendees want to ask questions, there's a Q&A window or the chat window. And yeah, ask away any questions that you have. Tim Veit and Shiri Mordecai are both residents with Foreheads. I'm the executive director and one of the founders of. And they're some of my favorite artists around. They're both beautiful human beings. I have pieces of art from both of these artists, like up on the wall, like loving it. And yeah, I couldn't have much more respect for these guys. And yeah, thank you all the attendees for joining. Thanks. I see that Sam Sundias is there. She's one of our artists, Jean Foos, and Guinevere is a dear friend of mine. Carol is, of course, Carol's there. She's one of our partners in this, Harvest Works is one of our partners in this talk series. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys for showing up. And everyone else who I don't know who you are as well. Jessica Beckwith, one of our past artists. So I'm gonna get started because we're already a little bit behind with the videos. I'm gonna show the video of Tim Fight's video first. He was the most on top of it person that we've been dealing with about getting videos in. His was in like 3 weeks ago. So, go responsible, Captain responsible.
I'm the teacher's pet.
So here we are. I'm going to be showing this video and then show Shiri's right afterwards.
The ocean cannot see, the land, the trees obey. The ocean cannot see, the ocean cannot see, the ocean cannot see. The land, the trees obey. The ocean cannot see. The ocean cannot see. The ocean cannot see. The ocean cannot see. The land, the trees obey. The ocean cannot see. The ocean cannot see. The ocean cannot see.
All right. It's like Tim and Time and Heart and Art. So next we're going to be showing Shiri Mordecai's video, and we'll be right back after that.
Your artist, Shiri Mordecai. Can you tell me a bit about your work?
So here I am doing my residency at Governor's Island through Foreheads, and it's called Air. And we're here for the summer for about 3 months. And I started this watercolor painting. Kind of drying right now, and I'm adding different layers to it and seeing what images emerge from it. So this is the beginning. Today I went for a walk to collect some bugs, and I'll show you. First of all, this piece. I'm adding little insects. There's a butterfly here, and just adding layers and layers to the piece. I found on my walk today these cicadas. If you want to take a look, somebody smashed them. I think, yeah. So they're kind of they have this like odd shape, and they happen to be doing something in the middle, like they were living, and then somebody smashed them in the middle of the act. Sometimes I feel like doing that.
Yeah. Sherry, you were one of the best painters of penises that I've ever come across. Thank you for that, because who doesn't love a good penis?
I have to correct you on this one before you say anything.
Really?
Well, I was told by a gay teacher, he said, you don't know how to draw penises. And then he described to me what a penis looks like much better than I could ever draw.
Well, he was a good teacher then, because you're killing it right now. Maybe you picked it up. That's where you picked it up.
Thanks.
So Tim, how many hours have you collected on your time card?
I think probably like for this summer.
Yeah.
Exactly the number of hours required by the residency.
I can get the contract out. I think
that's right. Get the contract out. It's
20 hours a week or something.
20 hours a week. Yes.
Yeah.
I make the reason I have the time card thing is so that I never go over. It's not to keep track of anything, but so that I just stick right to the contract.
Wow, you're going to be a lawyer when you grow up, I think.
Yeah, that's right, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for those videos. Absolutely great. I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys talk.
Sweet.
Tim, you're actually drawing right now, aren't you?
I think we're both drawing right now.
That's great.
Yeah. What are you making, Sherry?
Jack.
Mm-hmm.
I drew Jack while he was talking.
Oh yeah, that's me. That's totally me.
I drew Jack while he was talking too.
I take a lot of forms. All right, guys.
Nice.
So once more, this is Tim Fight, resident with Foreheads, and Shiri Mordecai, also a resident with Foreheads. And we're going to talk for a little bit. If you guys have any questions, if the audience has any questions, just type it either into the Q&A or the chat, and we will address them. So yeah, have fun.
Ooh, right on. Hi, Shiri.
Hello, hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, and I'm hearing many echoes, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
It's kind of like we're haunting ourselves.
Exactly. And I'm sure that we have like an endless family around us, invisible one.
Yeah.
We're liking it. We have no problems with these beings.
Yeah, I don't mind them so bad.
Yeah.
Good. So let's see. What were we going to talk about? We were going to talk about art, right?
You can talk about art.
Okay. What are you working on the island?
So I'm working on, first of all, I'm very happy and grateful to have large space. And I'm grateful to be in a place that has so much like history already and character. So I sort of feel like before I start to talk about what I'm working on, I feel very happy to take a ferry here every day and sort of leave everything behind. Just the act of taking that ferry is pretty amazing. And then landing on this island feels very sacred. And now that the weather is changing, I mean, today we have a nice day, but we had a few days of like rain and it felt a bit stormy or strong rain. That felt really good. I felt like I was being in a boat and I was kind of imagining that being like drowning or something. I don't know why, but I went there with my mind. I guess I wanted to drown in my own self or maybe my imagination or something, you know? Yeah. So to just take me to another level. I'm working on, thank God for air residency and foreheads, that I have the space to move around and jump around my own artwork, because as you know, in New York, the space is very, very small and limited. It can be that way for some artists, probably most artists. And so it feels nice to take the small pieces that I've been doing and actually make them as, you know, larger than I ever have, and use the whole entire floor. And we have a couple of rooms, so that's pretty amazing because I can jump around from one piece to the next. And the physical scale of it is really, it feels nice to be inside your work, because this is what I want to be inside my work. I want to walk on my work. I want to go inside those micro worlds, and that I've been sort of had to paint because of the limitations of space. And now it feels amazing. I wish that it could last for a couple of years. I would be really happy about that. Yeah. So large watercolor paintings on the floor. Yeah. What about yourself, Tim?
I feel the same way about the ferry and about the space. That there's this kind of beautiful thing that happens when you get on the ferry, where it just sort of is like a magical transition to another world. Like I feel like there's like the boat that takes you into hell. You have the coins on your eyes and stuff. Like it's the opposite of that. But it also does feel like a sort of death, like you were talking about, like that part of you that's worried in the city can die, and then come out here and have a daily afterlife with plenty of room to make art. And I've been drawing on the walls and kind of taking advantage of having room to scream. I do a lot of yelling. I don't know if you hear me through the wall.
I want to ask you about that.
Yes. Go ahead and ask.
So yeah. So I hear you sometimes, and sometimes I see you outside, and you are like totally zoomed in and focused completely. I actually I screamed your name a couple of times, and then I saw how focused you are, and I'm like, uh-oh, do not disturb him. You know, he wants to be in his own world. He's very focused. So yeah, I hear you like, I guess, singing sometimes and blasting music. And it's pretty amazing. Yeah. So I want to know what goes on, whatever I can't see, what's going on in your psyche, because you are here for long hours, undisturbed in that room that you're creating this amazing piece that I saw, this like endless piece. And yeah, if you could say more about this kind of blasting the music and singing and then moving your hands like that, what happens there? Like, does it affect the images or how they're being channeled?
I think it depends on the day, but most of the time when I'm making work, I'm trying to release something. You know, like it's about getting something out, and especially when I work big on the wall, or real big, like on big pictures, it helps for me to make big noise. I think in a lot of ways, it's like, you know, like in karate, when you punch, you ki, so you punch and you go like, "Hah!" And when you yell, that forceful yell actually sends energy through your arm and makes the impact even more profound. And I think when I'm drawing, I really like to yell and sing, because it's this added exit, you know, so it puts a lot of energy behind what I'm doing and makes it go out. It also just, it feels really nice. Like, I think, you know, both the experience of singing and drawing are very, they're body experiences for me, and my body really enjoys making noise and making lines.
That's pretty fascinating. Yeah. Does it so the images themselves feel very freaky, but yet like very common, like a commentary on social situations and things like that of the world, but yet they're sort of, some of them like remind me, and I don't know, maybe you want to say more about what they are to you, but like they remind me, some of them, of like the Mayas and the Incas and that kind of energy, or some of the Egyptian painting. Sometimes I see that in the work, but and then you have like insane subjects in it. Can you say a little bit more about that?
I mean, I draw what from my brain, and I'm sure my brain exists in the world with all of those things that you just listed. So it's bound to be impacted by them. But I think for the most part, I like to, especially when I draw on the walls, I like to have a general idea of where I am, and I start drawing the place. So this year, the place is New York City underwater. And then the imagery and the iconography and the sort of hieroglyphs will grow out of that. So like, I have this sort of broader vision of like, yo, I'm right here and I'm underwater in New York City, and now what happens, right? And then from that, I say, oh, the ocean is a heart. So how does the heart exist within the ocean? And it says, well, the heart floats up to the surface of the ocean and then floats up into the sky. And then what happens once it's in the sky, it gets grabbed by a child, but it's not just any child, it's a child with two heads. And like this kind of storytelling happens as the place begins to manifest, right? And I think that's like it's a super exciting thing for me to be able to create place and story at the same time, you know, like it gives my brain a way to exist in the real world. And I think I see like very similar thing that happens in your work, like where there's this kind of connection between what you need to get out of your head in order to be alive, and the things that the stories that exist in the world completely independently of you and of ourselves, right? Like sort of a more sort of spiritual, you know, realm. Do you think that you kind of connect those things?
Sorry, I was unmuted and talking to myself, which was pretty nice because now I have more time to think about things. Yeah, so I think that when I make artwork, it is a very spiritual exercise, and it's kind of a way of being in between places, because it's splitting. I don't know if exactly that's what you're asking me, but I would say that it's like your mind splits. You split yourself between being here in the physical body And then the part of the imagination, which is very sacred, and we talked about that before. But yeah, these are all things taken from space and from everything that's happening right now, and all the layers, the invisible layers. Yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question.
Do you use any particular particular tactics to begin to empty out, like in the same way that I use singing and music? Like, is there some activity or practice that helps you start the surge?
I think that's what I find that's very helpful for me, is not to stop making artwork, is actually to, when I get into a place where I just make and make and make, and kind of protected by my own bubble, then the flow happens. It's that part of the flow where things just come out. I have insomnia, big time insomnia every day. Sometimes I get a break from it for like a day, but I think that makes me kind of already like dreamy a bit, and kind of splits me a bit in my mind. So I'm very spacey, and then I don't have to think too much about what I do. Yeah, and I can sort of like, it's a way of not being in reality. It's a type of numbness a bit, like you sort of are able to escape that way. I don't like that. I wish I didn't have it, but that's like a byproduct of it a little bit. Yeah, like altered states of consciousness, I would say. Yeah.
Do you think is it easier to draw when you haven't slept?
Sometimes exhaustion. Yeah, sometimes exhaustion is a way you're pushing something, like you're not operating on the normal levels of your mind. So you're exhausting yourself, you're exhausted, and you're pushed to the limit that you're not so much in the body. I think that happens a few hours of the day, and then it goes in and out of it, it wears out, and then it comes back again. What happens to me though at night, like when I'm so exhausted and I want to go to sleep, but I can't. So I see movies in my head. I just go into different worlds, and I watch films happening or different things, and I play around with it, and it can be entertaining, because it's very hyper. It's like you're hyper. It's like a mix of anxieties and like frustration, and like your nervous system is like wants to kill somebody because of that. And so there's energy there, a lot of energy. So the mind starts to create because it needs to do something. So, and then I see things that don't exist in this dimension too. Like, and I could walk around with a three-dimensionality, and the colors that I don't see here in this plane, they're over there. So I think that there's all kinds of layers that happens in the psyche, and that's one of them, this kind of vivid spiritual world of anxieties and the higher, like these realms, yeah.
Are you like what I have a similar thing, like I have sleeping issues, and I find when I'm overexhausted, there's a certain curtain that's pulled from between this reality and the reality inside my head, and that the ability to kind of tap into the stories or into that flood of ideas is just, the gates are wide open, and it's much easier to get to it. And I think like what's interesting is that at night, for me, all that stuff is my enemy. But during the day, when I'm making artwork, all those things become not my friends, my coworkers, all of the positive forces in the art. Do you have any kind of like positive or negative relationship with the figures in your art, and with the sort of the twist of your mind between night and day?
I do. First of all, my brain wakes up at night. It is like, I have no idea where the hell that energy comes from, but it's like an animal or a werewolf. I mean, all of a sudden, it's so late, and then my brain wants to like live life, you know? I used to be so scared of the dark. Like the minute the light would close, the switch off, life, like the existence will become alive, and then everything would become activated and moving in my room, and the insane energies. Like it's almost as if some people see in the daylight, like right now your eyes are able to see, but when you turn off the switch, that's where my eyes see. It's like this like weird tunnels, and they could be pretty hellish. I think I spill my demons to the daytime too. And I think it has to do with people. You start to project like whatever the anxieties are, you're like, oh my God, people, you know? But you know, as I get older, I need people, you know, and you love people too, because you're a part of the tribe, whether you like it or not, or if you want to be, you don't have to be. So yeah, yeah, these demons and these ghosts or these distorted worlds of pain, or you know, whatever comes out when you dig into that world, they're there during the daytime, but the daytime is it's like a very, the level of it is very plain. You have a ground to walk on, you know, you have the gravity of the body. Yeah, so I'm much better at where my state of mind used to be. I'm much more of the world, because believe me, you don't want to go cross over to places that you don't know how to come back. I had to develop my social skills. I didn't really have that many. And back to what you were saying, Tim, which brings me back to, you asked about protecting the imagination. How do you protect your imagination? And I think that you could ask me that if you want, or you could answer after me. But like, sorry, here we go. So it's like when you go into this protecting your imagination. So I don't know, I just had a thought of how it spilled into that. But it's like being in your own bubble. And like I say, I had to become much more of the world. And then I paid the price of opening the door to having social skills and communicating. There is a bit of a price to pay if you really want to go deep into your inner self. And I'm just talking to myself. I don't know what it's like for you, Tim, but you can take over and if you want have anything to add about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel a very similar push and pull, you know, that to me, the imagination is sacred. But as with all things sacred, there's a need to not only keep it for yourself, but also to share it, right? That if sacredness is not shared, then there's no, it loses its potency. It can become sort of a disease in your own brain. And I think I protect it most by making things. because then it can exist in both worlds at the same time, right? So it's here in my head and it's all of that mess, but then I'm also putting it into the world and I'm giving it a container, right? The picture is the container for that madness. And that container in a lot of ways is so deliberately composed that deliberation in itself is a protection. It's like a protective spell, right? Like the edges of the paper is like its own little protective world, right? And or the edges of the room, the edges of the drawing, you know, and so I think like the ways that I protect my imagination is to turn it into concrete stuff, because the concreteness of that protects it.
That's interesting. You also mentioned that when I did a studio visit with you about a week or two ago, and you mentioned how you tune the world off, you tune the world away, and you don't let yourself be distracted by others, and you get here really early. And if there is one thing outside, even looking through the window and seeing someone can set you off. So yeah, that makes me think of protecting your imagination and all these things that need to happen there. I feel like there are almost all these chemical stuff that's happening that has to cook and to become into other, you know, things that contain space, even in the, that's happening in your mind, that's like needs to be protected. Yeah. I have to charge my computer because
Do you have a charger here?
I do have a charger. It's just that I don't know where to plug it.
Oh, okay.
To charge my computer. That is reality. We had an interruption with something real here.
It's perfect timing because I need to take a drink.
I want to add to, thank you. I want to add to the aspect of protecting your imagination. I used to be very selective who saw my artwork many years ago, and yes, thank you. It's working.
Nice.
I like, when I lived in San Francisco, I was like sharing this very like cheap studio that had like 30 people in it. It was like one big room. And I created a Bedouin tent and people kind of looked at me weird, but I just wanted to protect myself. Also with shows, I didn't mind strangers coming in to look at my work, but I made sure that nobody that I know comes to see the work. That happened for many years. Like I just needed space to just like, I think that like putting the wild parts of your mind, or okay, I'm going to use those words. Let's say we have really raw parts, or we have these thoughts that we entertain. Like, I know it's bad to say, but like serial killer or a cannibalist. What if I want to go there in my mind? What if I want to become that moment because I'm fucking angry, or somebody hurt me, or just this existence, you know? And I want to be able to be all these aspects without having anything to stop me, because I have the right to, you know. This society is already like, you know, oppresses everything, and just being a civilized person and wanting to survive. You just want to survive with the tribe, whatever tribe you're in. I don't care where you are, how amazing and wild your tribe is. You still have to fit in with certain rules. So yeah, that aspect of protecting yourself and really going to uncomfortable stuff, and to the point that you understand that you can become a nasty, gross animal, or you could even, I don't know, maybe have it in your mind that you have all these spectrums of things, and it could go way beyond any of the stories you make up about yourself. So that part is very important to protect that imagination. You know, whatever you want to do, you should be able to do it in your artwork, because the artwork is like, it's a container that should take and soak anything you put in it. You can put the most dirtiest, contaminated blood, you know, that you, whatever you murdered or did whatever you want, and you want to paint with that. I'm just using it as a metaphor.
Yeah.
That needs to, you know, and going back to your music, it seems like music, and I don't know how to say it, but people have done this a lot with music, different types of music, or they channel very like maybe psychotic energy or angry energy or anything you want to like smash things. And I heard some of it in your some of the music videos I saw, like the anger and and what happens when I watched you and sitting here in front of you, you're almost a different persona takes over, and it's pretty fascinating to look at that. Like your face, your feature changes, you're very serious, and I would like to hear about that.
I mean, I think that the for me, a lot of it is about frequencies, about vibrating, right? If you look at my pictures, there's a lot going on. They vibrate, blah 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 blah, black and white, and in the music, it's the same thing, and the kind of frequency can determine the actual physical form of my face and my body. You know, like even just you ring a bell, and that's gonna change my frequency. You know, like it's gonna complicate the moment and give my body a different resonance. And especially when I'm singing, that happens. And because the vibration comes from within, it comes from the center. You sing from your diaphragm, you know, as Mr. Cox, the choir teacher used to tell me, sing from your diaphragm. So yeah, I think I get, if I want to get angry, I just have to vibrate at that frequency, and the music helps do that, you know. And I had a question. You were talking about blood and dumping these things into the pictures, and I know you have a box of pictures next to you, and I would, if you're willing, I would love it if you could show us one that has some blood on it.
So thank you. I have to go through it because I think there's many pieces here. So let me see what comes out. I don't know how much blood is in this box because this is not the body of work. I swear I did not kill a squirrel or any of the insects here in the island. I don't believe that, but I could just pull out something, other pieces. Let's see. And
pull out something random. It doesn't even matter.
Really? Okay. Let me see. There was something I was thinking about just when we talked and you said that word. So hopefully it's here.
I found a rare one with some blood on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't drawn one. I very rarely draw in red, but there, that one's got some blood on it.
Oh wow! Can you describe it? I mean, is there like what is the image?
I drew this. I was in China, and there were all these animals that guard the different buildings, like up in the rafters and stuff. Like you could see them, and this was a sort of protective bird. It was really fat bird though. Like I think it was pregnant with like a lot of eggs. So there's like 50 eggs in its belly, and it's got a nice little short tail, and these little short wings, and it can barely fly. You know, it's just a little fat ass blood bird that probably got pooped out of the sky sometime. You know.
It definitely looks like this hybrid that you make, like it's kind of this like weird, strange hybrid.
Yeah. There's a little technology in it too, I think. I think there's some little wires and stuff that go up its back. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. Well, I had this painting in mind, but for some reason, the painting does not want to be here. It doesn't want to reveal itself, but I'm going to pull something else out. And let's see if you could see it.
Pull it back.
Pull random things, yeah.
There you go.
So
Perfect.
I'm curious, like, how do you read this? Like, what do you see or anything you feel? You can just say any word you want.
I see a dinner party in Dumbo, and the guests all got sick from the shrimp, except for the little kid in the middle who did not eat the shrimp.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. What do you see here?
Move it back just a hair. I see a bicycle shop where the majority of the bikes are a hybrid between a bicycle and a squid. And there's a sort of psychosexual component to riding your bicycle. There's sort of like those crazy anime movies where the squid kind of fucks everything. And if you get on this bicycle, you're gonna get these tentacles up in you, and you'll end up sort of like this guy on the side. He rode a bicycle, and that's what happened to his guts.
You know what? I feel like you should continue them. I honestly think it would be really interesting. Yeah, they deserve the full story. All right, so let me.
It's fun. I like this game.
What do you see here? Because the fish you drew, you said it was it China? You mentioned China.
Yeah.
Well, we're going here to ancient China, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Things happened there back then too, probably even more than now.
Some of the artifacts from ancient China are the wildest things I've ever seen. And this I see is this child has been imagining too much, and they're putting a hat on the child to remove his imagination so they can go forth in the world on a straighter path.
That's pretty great. Yeah, they all want to go on a straight path. I'll pull maybe one more.
Okay.
Actually, well, let's see. I don't know if this is, but
This, no, I think I know what this is. This is an episode of Mr. Rogers that never got aired.
That's great. And one more thing.
Okay. There was a circus that would come to the town that I lived in.
Yeah.
Where a child was eaten by a lion the night after we went. And I believe that this is probably the scene of people gathered around that child's corpse.
And so what happened to what did the corpse look like after the lion bit into it? Like which parts were left over?
From what I know, from what my friends told me,
yeah,
the kid lost an arm entirely, and barely survived. Like was like kind of dead but not dead.
I mean, is there evidence for sure that it was eaten by a lion, or do you think, I don't know, is it possible that a human did that?
No, it was a lion. Everybody watched. It was during the show.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
wow.
it was before the days when they took precautions with things like that. So the lion just jumped and got the kid.
Hey, I want to be that lion's friend. Actually, because I want a cat. I've been wanting a cat for a long time.
And that
I
child.
actually have it here. It's right here, you guys. Guess who killed that lion that thinks it's so tough? I have it. Yeah.
Judy killed the lion that tried to kill Tim.
Exactly. Because I need Tim around here for a little bit longer. We have to collaborate.
We're pretty much finished. But Tim, just to go, I mean, we went from Mr. Rogers to a child being ripped apart by a lion. But to go back to Mr. Rogers, because I'm from Pittsburgh, I did appreciate you switching shoes whenever you came into the studio. And the original title of this talk was "Won't You Be My Neighbor," not "Hey Neighbor." And I think Tim picked that up and went with it. And then we changed the name, screwed everything up.
There you go.
So, guys, thank you. I mean, to everyone that's watching, I know both of these people quite well and have spent, you know, large chunks of summers with them on Governor's Island. And Tim is just getting more and more surrounded by stuff. He's not going to be there any longer. Maybe that's how this ends, is Tim just like disappears into his work. Thank you guys both. It's Tim Veit and Shiri Mordecai, both residents with foreheads on Colonel's Row in the island. Deidre Lynch, I didn't get to your question yet, but I think the next group of artists would be able to chime in on that same thing. And yeah, we need to switch over. So next we have Julianne Negley and Simone Johnson. And I'm gonna put everyone on a little hold screen and be right back. Thank you guys. This was
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Shiri. It was great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
get some warmer clothes as soon as you guys are set up here.
Oh, good
Do you
idea.
want these books? I mean, as a, well, not to read, but as a prop. I think they're. I'll just hold it. But I wonder who's reading this book because they're Beam's books. So you could probably ask them if you wanted to read it. I've been calling papers. What's happening here? Let's see. Oh, let me know when you're set up over there. Are we set up over here? Yes, I'm getting on Zoom now. Are you good?
I think so.
Let's see, and it's, oh, Julianne and Simone. Are you Simone? Yes, I'm okay. Should I give them the go ahead? Yes. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hey, Julianne.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, great. You look so I know that it's like a bench, like rocking chair, but you look like a little kid because it looks like a regular. Really super small.
Are you on the Beam Center? It says preparing meeting.
Do you guys need me to send you anything?
I think we're about ready. I think Simone is logging on right now.
Network. Are you on the Beam Center network? Hi. Hi, can you hear me? Oh, I don't see you yet.
Yeah, she's working on it, so she'll be here in just a moment.
I saw her popping up right now.
Ah, good.
One thing for both of you, if your partner is in a long talk, if you could be on mute.
Sure.
But yeah, sometimes because there's so much noise on there's so many, it's the helicopters really, it's the problem.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's windy here today too.
Oh yeah, that time of the year, right? It gets real cold real quick on Governor's Island. It's always like 5-10 degrees colder out there.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
So everyone, we are about to get started. Simone is almost set up. How this works is I'm going to introduce and talk a little bit. Then we're going to show each one of their videos that they've pre-prepared. And then Julianne and Simone are going to talk on their own for a little bit, but we really encourage you guys to ask questions if you have any. Ask them if you don't have them. You could, like, do you prefer like 2% milk or like skim milk? Or don't do that. Sorry, actually, don't do that. Don't do that. So right now I'm going to start the videos, and that will actually give time for Simone to get set up if I just start the videos right now. So I'm going to start Julianne's video first and then Simone's video right after that. And we will rejoin these two wonderful artists in just a couple of minutes.
No, I'm
And I'm artist in residence at Swale House. What I'm working on in the room right now is a series of paintings and sculptures, but I'm really interested in my practice overall. I describe myself as an archaeologist. Where an archaeologist unearths layers to discover something about the ancient past. I accumulate layers of data, info, narrative, and I start each of my projects with some kind of field work. My work is often collaborative, whether that's with other artists, scientists, or creative thinkers from other fields. So Swale House has been a really good fit for me. While I've been here, I've been collecting a lot of plant samples, especially those that you would consider weeds by the general public. And I've been pressing them and using them to create stencils and create these layered paintings where I use my airbrush and also loose brushwork with a paintbrush. This one is called After Image, and all of the plants for this painting actually came from a vacant lot next to my house. And I was working on this during the pandemic, and that's when this fence came into the imagery in kind of metaphoric sense. But it's been really nice to have this studio space full of plant life and something kind of uplifting and inspiring. This summer, I figured out how to apply that painting process to a series of sculptures that I'm working on. This piece is called Heartbeats, and it's actually a self-portrait. For the past 2 years, my partner and I have been trying to conceive our first child, and it's been an incredibly emotional process. So that combined with all of the stresses of the pandemic have been really intense. And so I really dove into working on this piece several months ago, basically as a form of self-care, so that I could, every day go to my studio and have this cathartic way to focus my attention. And if you look really closely, I've used a very similar painting process and paint samples, or plant samples that I had collected on the surface of this piece. There's a grow lamp shining behind it to keep this bush alive, and it's bursting forth metaphorically. So I hope that these pieces can be really cathartic for my viewers as well, and maybe offer a kind of uplifting imagery too, as we imagine moving forward. So thanks for taking a look.
All right. And next up is Simone Johnson's video. So I should say Julianne Nagel is from Swale House, and Simone Johnson is from Works on Water, both residencies on the island.
Hi, I'm Julianne.
Oh, that's right. Shit. Sorry. 1 second, guys.
Welcome.
Sorry, bear with me just 1 second.
Welcome to the Wow House on Governor's Island, and I am in the library area. This is the Wow Water Library. And I took 2 pamphlets that I'm using. Of course I would run into rose medicine. Of course. Amazing. And then this is from Bundy Hill Swamp when I was living in Pauling, New York for 6 weeks. Some nice rocks here. Here's some clay soil. Beautiful clay soil that I put in this mason jar. I want to make pottery out of it. And then I recently visited the Graniteville wetlands, where the Coalition for Wetlands and Forests in Staten Island, who are fighting to protect that wetland, gave me a tour of the wetland. And it's a forest wetland. So there's so many rocks, and I learned that there are vernal pools there, and further back are the marshlands. Here's some bark. And so I'm just learning more about the Graniteville wetlands and how I can support them. Okay, so this is what I ground it up. And I was saying I can see why these rocks, I could grind them up because they're really thin. Look at all these different colors. Oranges, grays. And I was trying to figure out where am I going to put this at because I want to be really keep track of this. And I think I might put it in this seashell from Governor's Island that I found in the lavender field. Yes. All right. So I'm going to finish putting this rock.
Hey guys. So we're having a little bit of tech problems on the island right now, but it's not a big deal, and we are going to be set up in just a minute or two. But why don't I, instead of just going to a test screen or something like that, let me play you guys a movie about last year's Governor's Island Art Fair. I know I played this last week, but we're trying to stretch things a little bit, so I'm going to play it again. Give me a sec. And I will bring that up for you guys. Hey everyone. So thank you again. We're almost done with our technical difficulties, and I apologize to, of course, Julianne and Simone. We're just having a little bit of trouble. I can totally play you another video though. It's it's going to be of the maybe 2018 Governor's Island Art Fair. Actually, at that time, it's really funny. So we had to change our name from Forehead's Governor's Island Art Fair to Forehead's Portal Governor's Island. And I think that this was the year that we did it. So this might be Portal as well. Yeah, 1 second and I can get that back up. Well, we're just waiting for a couple more minutes for some tech issues to be worked out. So enjoy another video of 2018 Governor's Island Art Fair.
So you want to put your video. And when you talk, just hit the mute button. Okay.
Hey guys, all right. We're all ready. Already. So we went through your guys' videos and they were great. Like I totally see a wonderful couple of things that you guys have overlapping. And Simone, it's very nice to see your face. Simone Johnson, she's from Works on Water. And Julianne Nagels is from Swell House. I think, are both of you guys in Nolan Park?
Yes.
Okay. So you've seen each other like walking around and
Yeah, we actually just met earlier today, which was exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to get out of here and let you guys chat on your own. Thank you both so much for being here. And audience, if you guys have any questions or anything, just put them into the chat or the Q&A. Either way, we will get them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for the introduction. So, hi, Simone. How are you doing? I think, can you unmute your microphone? It's in the lower left corner. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
I can hear you well.
There's a little bit of a delay, but you're right there.
Yeah. I really loved your video, and I was kind of excited to see you doing so much field work, really exploring and see where the landscape takes you and getting inspired by what you discover. And I guess my first question is how does all of that field work and exploration materialize as an artwork in your studio?
That's a great question, and I'm sorry there's so many tech issues. There's a bit of a delay, so luckily you're right over there. Thanks for your question. So the project I'm working on is called Painting Wetland Medicine, and it's really new. Like I've barely touched the surface, and how it's materialized so far is right now what I'm doing now is I'm mostly visiting two wetlands, the wetlands at Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge and the Graniteville wetland in Staten Island. And like later in the fall and during the winter is when I'll really start painting and drawing. But right now I'm just visiting the wetlands and collecting rocks. I was only going to collect rocks at first to make paint with, but now I'm talking to someone else named Marjorie who's really into ink making. And so now I'm, gathering plants to make ink with. And I just have rocks in my studio, rocks and seashells that I've found and plants. I didn't bring the plants this time around, but last time I was at Jamaica Bay, I just gathered a little bit, like one sumac plant and some goldenrod. And I'm not going to be there for long, but so far it's just rocks and seashells. Yeah. And I didn't know if you wanted to ask another question or if we like go back and forth. We lost some time there.
However you like. I am curious. Do you typically start by learning from your environment, or do you ever have a set really structured plan at the beginning of a project? It just seems like such an exciting way to work.
Thank you. Actually, the painting wetlands came out of, I participated in something called Walking the Edge, which is just wrapping up, where a lot of artists were making work along the shoreline, along edges throughout the city. There's like 520 miles of shoreline throughout New York City. And it was actually going to be this big thing this year that was translated through social media and sharing through social media, and people can actually Google Walking the Edge. I think it's .nyc, but it's also where a lot of Works on Water folks were involved in that, and I happened to be living near a swamp for 6 weeks upstate, like literally in walking distance while I was doing this project for Walking the Edge. And then I fell in love with the swamp because all my life I've heard how bad swamps are. And this was such a magical place. And it came out of that actually. And I just and then I just started researching wetlands in the city. And it was all these things that came together. Like years ago, I remember the Coalition for Wetlands and Forests in Staten Island talking about this wetland that they were trying to protect. So it was just me kind of pulling things from memory combined with what was happening in my life, where I was just like, wetlands. So
that's so cool. It sounds so serendipitous. Yeah. So cool. It sounds so serendipitous. Yeah. But also maybe comes from just constantly keeping your eyes open and being aware of what's going on around you and being open to things as you discover them.
Yeah, I've wetlands have always been in the back of my mind somehow, because my grandfather owns land in South Carolina, and it's swampland. And so we've always gotten the message that that's the bad land. And it's just, I've always heard these messages of how bad swamps are, but they're wetlands. And then when you start researching wetlands, they're beautiful places, one of the most biodiverse places. And I think it's really interesting because I was researching your work and how you work with story and narratives, and it reminds me, like, oh, I've been told this story my entire life about wetlands or swamps in particular. Yeah, and I didn't know if maybe I could segue into asking you a question.
Sure.
Or if you had another one.
Well, that's funny because I had a similar impulse when I was working on this project about groundhog burrows, because I was really fascinated to think about the architecture that they were digging in the ground beneath our feet. But at the same time, my father is always so frustrated with the groundhogs that live on our property in Pennsylvania, and my dog is constantly chasing them. Meanwhile, groundhogs are really fascinating creatures, and their burrows can host life for up to 400 other species at a time. So,
wow.
Yeah, they're really remarkable. Once you get to know something about them.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. It's like that's so interesting. Like all these things that are happening, you have no idea that they're happening. I had no idea about that. It's like maybe the invisible experiences that are happening, and like animals' experiences. You know, I guess like maybe not everyone's thinking about what experiences animals are having. So that's really interesting. I dropped off the call there, but I was gonna ask you, I just think it's so interesting that you describe yourself as an unarchaeologist. And I was curious if you could talk more about that. And, you know, as long as you've been doing your work as an archaeologist, you know, like what has surprised you about doing that kind of work?
Oh, well, I started to describe myself that way. Like, as you mentioned, narrative is an important part of my work and kind of building up layers. So I was thinking it's sort of the opposite of archaeology. And I've used archaeological processes literally in some of my work, trying to unearth things, whether I'm unearthing like personal history or scientific data or physical objects that are buried in the ground. But other times in my own practice and more generally, I'm gathering data and I'm gathering stories and histories and bringing all of these different ways of thinking about a subject or investigating something back into my studio. And I think of that a lot like field work. So I found that correlation between our work. Like we both start with this process of investigation and learning and gathering, a lot of foraging and gathering and bringing it back into our space before we make something with poetic output. So yeah, I was really curious about that likeness and like, I'm kind of curious about your paintings, and you've been working on this kind of long-term project, and you were saying that you're going to work on the paintings this winter. And I'm so curious whether you've been imagining what those might look like already, or if you work in stages. Like right now is about minerals and materials and processing what you find, or if like some of the sketches happen from the beginning as well.
That's a really great question. I feel like I'm returning to something that I haven't done in a while because I painted a while ago and I was a studio art minor, and it was years ago. And I was really into street art and murals, and I feel like I'm just returning to this, and I've been trying to organize myself. Like, how do I do this? Because I want to do everything at the same time. I want to paint, I want to gather, and I want it all to just be just together. But then I'm just like getting comfortable with slowing down. Like, this is the time where it's taking me time to visit the wetlands, and that takes time to like, I went to Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge just to get to know the plants. And I did get to know the plants, but I just feel like that process will be longer. And it's interesting to see like just a few weeks how much the plants change, because the first time I visited Jamaica Bay, there were so many wild roses. And then the next time I see sculpt, I'm just anxious to paint. When I'm doing that, I take out to draw with, or I'll just draw from the photos that I take. I have some images. I just want to paint the wetlands. I want to paint the plants that I see, and see what happens. I'm trying to be okay with going slow, which feels really slow. Hopefully, is the text still okay? Yeah. I'm looking through my questions. I was curious. Also, you talk about time. Like time is connected to your work, and like you described it as a combination of like sculpture and time travel. And so I was just wanting to hear more about that, because that's really cool.
Yeah, I think sculptural environments or installations are a really incredible way to be transported. Or even murals, like you mentioned before, anything that fills your peripheral vision, and where you can get lost in the visual aspects of it. A lot of my installations are incredibly dense, and I'm always looking for density. And I think in part it's because I grew up in a forest on like 126 acres. But then I moved to Manhattan when I was 18 for college. And so the density of the forest and the density of the city have given me these really rich visual experiences. So I'm often like kind of replicating that in my studio space. I think history has been an important component to my work, even though it's not historical, but it's played a part in a multitude of ways. You know, a lot of my projects start with a stack of books that I'm reading. And I'm often listening to audiobooks and doing research while I work on something. And for me, all of that information that I'm taking in gets embedded in the project somehow. Maybe not necessarily in a way that's like legible or even necessary for the viewer to understand, but I can look at any of the sculptural installations that I've created in like the past decade, and I can remember the stack of books that I was studying at that time. So the physical objects become this way to kind of hold all of that information for me, which is really important on a personal level for sure. And there are layers to the work. So depending on the audience's level of engagement or interest, there's more to discover. I think making installations that let the artist feel like, or excuse me, the viewer feel like they're doing field work in the gallery is the most important thing to me. Like, I want the viewers to be fully engaged and discovering things for themselves rather than passive viewers who are just taking things in. I really want them to be exploring and discovering things on their own.
Oh, I love that. That sounds right up my alley, because it sounds like people are learning, you know, like people would see a sculpture and they'd be learning at the same time. Is that right? Like people would be learning, people would be discovering for themselves, like what you're working on.
Ideally, yeah. I hope so. I think when the work is really functioning at its best, that's hopefully what it's achieving. Yeah, absolutely. You're invited. Totally. Another thing that I noticed that we have in common is that we've worked collaboratively on different projects, and I wonder how important that is.
Yes. Sorry, I will remember to mute. And something popped up here. I don't want to press the wrong thing. Working collaboratively. Most of my time in like performance art has been working collaboratively, and it's just lately that I've just kind of done my own thing. But then I always end up collaborating. I think for painting wetland medicine, although this is really new, I have been talking with the Coalition for Wetlands and Forests in Staten Island about what they've been doing to protect that wetland. And it's just talking now, just getting to know people. I had a chance to go to the Graniteville wetland in Staten Island, which I hadn't been to Staten Island for a while. And they showed me around and told me all the stories connected to the wetland and why it was important to keep it safe in the community and all sorts of stories. And I think that really helps me ground into that place. And I'm also hoping to connect with people in Jamaica, connected to the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge, people in the Broad Channel community, because that's where I'm at. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that along the way I can collaborate with more folks. I even see that learning from someone named Tilka who founded the Wild Pigment Project. I even see that as a collaboration because I'm learning from her about wild pigments. And I don't know, it just collaborating feels so rich because I like the learning. I feel like I'm obsessed with learning, you know? I think really another word for art is just me like learning. Another education pathway.
I feel the same. I totally agree with you. And I think it's the most important thing in the world. Like I tell my students all the time, knowledge is power. It's the most important thing. It's the way to improve any situation. It's the best thing you can do with your time. And that, information just compounds the more and the more you learn and becomes wisdom. So yeah, I think art is a great excuse to learn and also a way to share what we learn, and that no artwork is actually done until you share it with somebody and have a conversation about it. So I think engagement with audience, collaboration with other artists, other thinkers is like really the most important thing we can do with our lives.
Yes. Yeah, and I just feel like, yeah, that can be school, some type of school, and I appreciate that. I appreciate any educators creating like a container to learn like that. And I'm just gonna go back to my questions. Sorry, I'm not so. Okay. And so this was something I wanted to ask. I was just curious, in all of your time making your work, is there like a piece that you finished, but that you would go back to, that like you would return to for some reason?
That happens in my studio all the time. I was joking with my studio mates today that no piece of artwork is ever done. Every time I exhibit it, every time I get it back out, I work back into it. I don't, I think for some artists, when they exhibit a piece, they consider it published and they want to carry what they learn from it into the next work. And that's awesome. But really, like, I work back into things all the time. Specifically, if I get to show it at a different venue, then I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities that might provide. So back to one of the pieces I mentioned earlier, the piece about the groundhog burrows underground. I ended up making this simplified, idealized version of a groundhog burrow that's large enough for human beings to crawl inside of. And then I wanted it, like groundhog burrows themselves, to be made out of natural materials and to also kind of feel like an outdoor space inside a building. So I wove it out of rattan, which is a plant fiber. It's often used for wicker chairs. And I showed that once at School 33 Art Center in Baltimore. And in the first iteration, I made some changes to it when I got a chance to show it again. I showed it at the Children's Museum of Manhattan this year. The show opened in January. And because that venue was a little bit different and because I'd had some extra time to work into the piece, I ended up making like a lot more plush pillows and changing the format of the piece. I knew that there would be a lot more children engaging with the piece rather than an adult audience. So I made it a lot more kid friendly. And there were these plush sculptures of bacteria that I made from taking soil samples inside the groundhog burrow. And I made like hundreds of them for the Children's Museum show so the kids could play with them, and they kind of traveled and spread throughout the museum. So that's an example of a specific piece. But I also find that my interests are cyclical and that I come back to either subject matters or ideas. I keep kind of cycling back through things over time. Do you find that you do that as well?
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I feel like I'm processing that. That's cool on in so many different ways. Like art for children, like working with the earth to create the burrows. That's really interesting. That feels really earthy in a sense. I don't know what word I'm trying to find, but yeah, I'm the same way. I just feel like I look at the projects that I've done and I'll always come back to them maybe like 2-3 years from now, or maybe I'll dabble in some. And yeah, I think that's how I work too. There's some water project that I want to return to. There's some that are bubbling, and I kind of like that kind of flowing in and out. Okay, To focus on this, but this is in the background. And I know there's this one water project that I want to try again. I worked on it earlier or last year. It involved like the oceans and the abyss and algae and magical realism. And I want to continue working on that, come around to it next year. But I think it's just, I just love that way of working. And I understand we only have a few more minutes left. So this has been fun. I like learning about other artists.
We have a couple of questions, and I was wondering in the last 2 minutes that we have, 2 questions. Have you and do you interact with the milkweed on Governor's Island? The milkweed is like a thing that the monarch butterflies flock to, and I think that it was planted for that reason. Do you know about that, and have you interacted with it? And the other part of the question is that as an artist, yes, definitely, when is the piece finished? But during the pandemic, when we were in lockdown, with an infinite amount of time, did that change your perspective about when a piece is finished?
You wanna go first?
Sure. Yeah, so for the milkweed, I've incorporated the imagery into some of my paintings. And then also, one of the projects that I worked on last summer was this basket that I could wear on my back. And I was raising butterflies inside of it. And they love milkweed and butterfly plants. They're really drawn to it. So I built this habitat for them. And it was really nice because the butterflies seemed very content there. And they even, I raised them from caterpillars, and they even laid eggs of their own. So I thought that if they felt comfortable enough to breed, then it was probably a good environment for them. So yeah. What about you, Mom?
I actually have not seen any milkweed, which is really interesting. I just go around and look for plants. I haven't seen milkweed, so I'll look out for that. As far as making art during the pandemic, I was involved in a lot of mutual aid work. And I was trying to talk to a mentor for that ocean project I was talking about, but everything was so whatever during that time. I think overall 2020, I think it's just a year to just come back around. It's whatever can happen this year to come back around and see what happens.
That sounds like a healthy way to think about
2019 again. And guys, thank you so much for this thoughtful conversation and really Swale House and Works on Water. Thanks bunches as well. And Julianne and Simone, just thank you, really. This has been such a great talk. Today's been really good all over, I think. I have all of my notes are crossed off now. I have just a ton of notes that I had to, that means we're done.
Thanks again for inviting me and Simone. I'm really glad that I met you. And we're neighbors, so let's hang out.
Yes. Hey, neighbor.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys all. And we appreciate it. We'll see you back here next week. We have Ann Wu from NARS, Charlotte Mundy from HarvestWorks, talking with Charlotte Mundy from HarvestWorks, Akari and Christian. Akari is from Beam and Christian is from NARS. I'm horrible with these last names, so I'm really sorry about that. I'll just admit it. Nusafa and Anush. Nusafa is from Bronx Artworks and Anush is from Beam. And they're both wonderful. I've met Anush before. He's a great guy. He actually took it really well whenever I broke into their house when he was listening to music because I had to get something back from them. And he handled it really nice that a stranger was showing up in the house. So I do appreciate that from Anush. So please tune in next week. It's going to be really good. Again, thank you both. Thank you all very much. And I'm Jack, and I'll